Welcome to the GC BizCast, a production of J. Whitney Bunting College of Business at Georgia College and State University. Here we discuss the important topics with business leaders and educators. We produce weekly podcasts from our beautiful campus in Milledgeville, Georgia. We're excited that you've joined us. Our conversation should inform and entertain you. The views expressed are the views of the individuals on the program and do not represent the views of Georgia College and State University. So let's get started.
Alan McMullen is a creative director in the field of advertising. For more than 25 years, he has created compelling campaigns for clients such as AT&T, DirecTV, Toyota, Sony PlayStation, United Healthcare, and Procter & Gamble. For the last decade, Alan has worked in multicultural advertising, creating culturally relevant campaigns in French, Italian, Spanish, Russian, Mandarin, Cantonese, Vietnamese, Tagalog, Korean, and Japanese. Alan received a Bachelor of Arts in Literature from UCLA. Hi, Alan. How are you today?
I am great. I guess good afternoon. It's afternoon there.
Yes.
And it just turned afternoon here, so all good.
Sweet.
So who do we have here?
So I'm Sruti. We met on FaceTime briefly. I'm a sophomore at Georgia College and I'm a marketing major, obviously.
Okay.
And I'm Maggie. I am also a marketing major here at Georgia College, but I'm a junior.
Okay.
And then I'm Mya. I'm a freshman, so we got all different years. And then I'm also a marketing major.
Okay, hang on a minute. That's Roger. He's into marketing himself.
Oh, yeah?
But mostly to the mailman. All right. Okay, so I'm Alan McMullen, as you probably already know. And go ahead, ask away.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to, sit down and speak with us. We have heard a little bit about you, been looking at your LinkedIn, things like that. So we're really excited to have you. Just to kind of start off the bat, open the gate. How did you go from graduating with a degree in literature to becoming a creative director?
Okay. So there's a little bit of happenstance that goes with that story, but also just I wasn't planning on it. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
But what happens in a case like that is I did have an English literature major, and what I thought I was going to do with that was much more in line with what Ward has done with his background, to his educational background. But as things turned out, that didn't happen with me. I went into, I had been working at a bank through my high school and college years, and just to make my way through college, actually. And I had gone from just working in the mailroom to actually being in their management training program at the bank. And by the time I was graduating from college, I was in this program, and the bank was procured by another bank, and they didn't need any more managers, and they let me go. And so I was just at that point where I could do anything. And so started looking around. I thought, what could I do that involved writing, and more importantly, creative writing? And advertising was an outlet for that. And so I started getting involved with just doing some freelance work. And then eventually I went from just kind of doing little things to eventually working with one of the premier West Coast agencies, just through a friend of mine. And because of that, I was working with Team One on a freelance basis. They are Saatchi & Saatchi, and they do Lexus. And so, I mean, it was also kind of happenstance, kind of like I was trying to utilize my background, my educational background at the same time. And I was looking for something that would be fulfilling. So that's kind of how I fell into it.
Do you think the things that you learned, like in your English career, like prepared you for marketing, or?
Well, I think certainly, having done a lot of writing in college, that certainly helped a lot. I think that just having, expanded my horizons with a lot of reading certainly did that as well. But there was nothing that really prepares you for advertising. It's kind of the weird world. It's especially, I don't know what your understanding of it is, or, a lot of people think that, Mad Men is basically their understanding of what the advertising world is like, but it's not really like that. Mm. But there are certain parts of it that are like that.
Okay. Yeah. So to kind of go off of that, what do you think was the hardest part of being a beginner in your field? What was challenging?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are challenging for people once they first get in there, because when you begin as a creative, you are on a lower rung, as always, and it's really difficult to understand the whole structure of the critique that is involved in getting an actual ad out into the real world. Depending on who your client is, and I just had a very long meeting before this one, a presentation to a bank, and because of their corporate structure, it takes forever for you to just kind of climb up the ladder in order to get everybody on the same page and agreeing with your creative, right? And there is a lot of subjectivity that's involved with it as well. So when you're younger, it's hard for you to kind of grasp that, right? Everybody's criticizing you. When you're my age, everybody criticizes you, but you're used to it. Your skin is a lot thicker.
Yeah.
But then do you think there's a particular thing that you did while you were a beginner that you would recommend, or that really helped you, that stood out?
Good question. I have a lot of things that I did that I wouldn't recommend.
Okay. That's good too.
Yeah, we'll hear that.
And that's evident by the actual answer that I gave to that question. Feeling that way. When you're younger and you're involved in any kind of corporate situation, there's going to be a huge amount of criticism and critique that is involved with that. That's just part of the structure of any corporation. Right. So, just acknowledging that, rolling with the punches, that kind of thing is always good. And taking the opportunity, look, if somebody's critiquing you, take the opportunity to understand and, absorb what they're saying. And, it doesn't mean you have to think that everything they say is correct or true. It's just, take it in and, chew on it for a while.
That's really great advice. Thank you. We've been talking a lot about creative, and we were talking about how reading a lot of books helped you with that and stuff like that. Can you tell us a little bit about creative inspiration for campaigns and kind of what your process looks like?
Yeah, so what happens with creative is you get a sheet of paper, and hopefully that sheet of paper is only one sheet of paper, but usually it's much more than that. And it gives you an outline. It comes from what we call these different departments: the account department, the strategy department, the research department, and they all come together and say, okay, these are the people we want to talk to, right? And then here's what we want to say to them, and here are their motivations. Here's their demographics. So they give you the age of your audience. They give you, specifics about them, where they live, that kind of thing. So it's all there's a lot of prescription that goes into that, the creative process. And by the time you get to that point, you not only know who you're talking to, but you know what you want them to take away from what your discussion and that kind of thing. So in the creative process, there's a small little window where you can bring your experience to it. Yes, reading a lot of books has helped that, definitely, but also just being aware in the greater scheme of things of the world around you, right? So awareness and observation are really, really key to being germane to the now, right? So you want to be, you want to be very relevant at the moment for your audience. And so that includes books, that includes movies and television and magazines and the news. And I mean, just anything that you can kind of take in. And especially now that you've got all kinds of, you have all kinds of platforms in which to receive information and try to stay relevant with what's going on in the world, or more specifically, what's going on in the world of your audience.
Is it ever overwhelming to try to feel like you have to keep up with, all of the things going on? Or do you ever find yourself maybe, wanting a break from keeping up with just the times and what's going on in our world?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And I don't mean that, I mean, it's kind of funny, but yes, you want to take a break. You just kind of want to shut everything down, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've all had that experience where we wake up and we just don't want to turn on the TV or the news or read our feed or scroll through something, because it's just gonna, it's gonna put you in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I'm human. So the answer to that is, there's times you just kind of want to turn off. But, there's also, and it's not all negative. There's a lot of good stuff that comes from, just kind of absorbing a lot of cultural things that are out there. I mean, it's not just news, obviously. Yeah. I mean, think about when something positive happens, or a great movie comes out, or people are going out and they are protesting something, right? And there's actually a good thing, a good motive behind people actually being activated. Yeah. I've had a lot of opportunities, especially in the last few years, to actually be a part of that in a way, I mean, we've had quite an upheaval in just the communal thought of how America should be and where we're going forward and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Advertising and identity, I guess I should define that. In the world of design and marketing, identity is the brand identity of a corporation, of an organization. So, we deal a lot with that, right? Mm-hmm. How is that organization going to be seen by the general public? What are the things about them that are really positive? About a year and a half ago, I was working on a project. It was a seminary, a school on the West Coast. It's attached to Cal Berkeley, actually. And I got to work on their identity, their rebranding of a school, and it turned out to be a really, really fulfilling project for me, even though I'm not particularly religious. But just to, they were motivated to be a part of the positive movements that were going on. And we kind of, we structured their identity accordingly. And it was, like I said, it was very, very fulfilling to be a part of something like that.
That sounds like a really interesting and, cool kind of project that I wouldn't necessarily think about when I think about advertising, but I mean, that's all.
Here's the thought on that is something that I did want to bring up to you guys is part of the reason why I became a creative director and got involved in advertising. I didn't know it at first, but your life path or your career pathway is never set. You never know what you're going to be working on. You could be working on a seminary that's the oldest seminary on the West Coast. You could be working on the launch of a new electric car. You could be working on, the newest PlayStation game that's coming out. And I mean, I've done all those things.
Yeah.
So like life is a little bit more, if you're open to new adventures, this is a good profession to actually kind of, stake your flag into, because you never know what you're going to be working on.
Always changing.
Yeah. Again, the other side of that is that, and I mentioned that I was working on a bank this morning, a presentation for a bank. We shall go nameless. And you can imagine what that's like. It's not the most creative, right?
Yeah.
And they're it's very corporate. It's very structured. And so there's a lot of patience that is involved in that kind of thing.
To go off of something you mentioned earlier when you answered the question, that there's, you go off of trends and fads and stuff like that. Have you ever been working on a project that kind of goes with a trend and that trend kind of goes away and you have to restart? That's
a good question. We're very cognizant of the ephemeral nature of trends. So we never really embrace them totally.
Okay.
And we also know that if something is at its height, by the time that we actually produce and get published, whether that be newspaper, print, website, TV commercial, it's probably going to be too late to ride that train.
Right.
So if we do make reference culturally to that kind of thing, it's probably in juxtaposition to it, more as a sounding board than it is to say, hey, we're part of this. So, yeah, I mean, if you think about the trends that go through social media, and I'll use TikTok because it's like the most.
Yeah, there's a new trend every week.
Yeah, and it could be, the trends may even last 3 days, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, and so our production on, say, a television commercial can be as long as 3 months. So no, we would not rely upon the revel. Although I have seen it done in national TV spots where they're using some of the background musical snippets from TikTok.
Yeah.
I've been talking about this a little bit, but what have you found to be the most important when it comes to generating customer engagement and interest in a product or a service or whatever it is?
Well, I'll tell you this because I have had the privilege of working on a client by the name of PlayStation. And the most important thing in customer engagement is to have them be engaged already. And I say that kind of jokingly, but not wholeheartedly. What we were tasked to do in that particular thing is create an environment, a digital environment, where we would invite, you would, as a PlayStation member, you'd be secretly invited to this domain where you could come and you'd be introduced to new products. You get to play games before anybody else. You get to test games, you got to comment on them, you got to review them, the whole thing. And then there was all kinds of giveaways. It was a dream come true for somebody who wanted to gather information from a very willing audience. Now, on the other end of that, the typical response rate for, hey, can you take this survey, is close to zero, right? I mean, 2% would be like, wow, we've done a really great job here. But typically, if you're working on something like PlayStation, where you have enthusiasm built in, then, I mean, that's the greatest thing you can have. But trying to engage people is very, very difficult. And especially now when everybody's doing it. I mean, any app that you have on your phone, you know, you've said no to taking a survey to, right? And any website that you visit often, they're always asking you. And I mean, it's so much more difficult now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
The response rates are difficult, but to engage somebody, you've really got to offer them something special.
Yeah. I think you just touched on this a little bit, but could you go more in depth about how really your job and just marketing and advertising in general has changed over time with technology and social media and all the things that we have now?
Yeah, I guess I could. The reason why I say that is just because I'm going to date myself pretty quickly.
Oh, okay.
But that's okay. I don't mind. That's fine.
We don't mind.
I started working in advertising and marketing well before our digital age, right? So I've gone from analog to digital. And along that way, things have changed quite a bit, right? Your world is much different than my world at your age. But, I mean, there are things that are still relevant, like staying relevant, staying up to, you know, I mean, when you're younger, it's kind of easier because you're more engaged with different people. The idea that you are willing to absorb more information and hear new ideas is part of the educational track that you're on. When you get older, it's harder to do that unless it's very conscious to do that. But like I said, when I started off, I was analog, and the whole idea of immediate response was not part of the whole, whatever. But I would say that is the most profound change that has happened, going from analog to digital. But I started as a young person, probably close to your age, where we became digital. And I jumped on that right away, pretty much before most people did. We were a friend of mine, who's also a friend of your professors. We all went to school together. We got together and we decided that we were going to be, on the forefront of creating digital marketing for bigger corporations. And our first client was Toyota.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Your first client?
I was working at the Toyota's agency at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had access to all of their assets, their video, photography, and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we did is we put together a prototype of what a digital marketing piece might be on our own, without any, we fronted the money and got everything together, and we presented it to them at the right time. And opportunities like that may come up for you, maybe not as maybe not as like, assured like as that was. But I mean, that was at the right time, at the right place. We brought it to the agency. The agency had been talking to their client about the oncoming digital marketing wave. And the client kept saying, well, what is it going to look like? What's it going to look like? And they said, well, it's going to look like this. It's going to look like that. And they're like, what do you mean? And then here we come along with an actual thing that you can, it's a prototype that you can see on your computer, right? So it would come up and it would show instead of having somebody hand you a brochure for a Camry or whatever, you would go to a screen and you would ask it questions and it would tell you everything, and it would just blow their minds away.
Yeah.
So,
As we, sorry, continue.
No, I was just going to say, just being at the right time, at the right place, and actually doing something about it is like the most important thing to stay relevant.
As we get ready to head out, could you give us like a really quick, short, sweet, like piece of advice, like as, marketing majors, people who are about to go into the field, like what is one thing that you would just be like, make sure you don't forget this?
Well, I think and I thought about this actually before, because I thought you were going to ask me this question. And I think I'll do a little bit of a twist on it. It really is plant seeds. Plant a lot of seeds. Always make sure that, and by that I mean create relationships with people. And really like when you need to cultivate those relationships. Now, I didn't particularly get that in my early stages of my career as much as I should have, but I certainly through my career have learned that is very, very important. And you will be amazed at the kind of returns you get on that. And also the people that you're working with, not those who are above you, but the people that you are working with are the people that you're going to be, you'll be going through your careers, whatever they may be, but they're going to be beside you in a parallel path throughout your lifetime in some form or another. Your paths may diverge, but you never know when they may come back. So really cultivate those relationships as well. Yeah, certainly the reflexes to, create those relationships with somebody who's your mentor or somebody who can help you with a hand up. But remember that the person beside you is the person that you're going to spend the most time in your career path with. And those relationships are really, really important. And probably the most, and this is probably not like right now, you won't see this in your career path as you graduate and you start on your career, but those people that you can help, those people will remember you throughout. And if you pull somebody up, they will eventually, help you in some form or another. It's just the weirdest thing, but it's also the most gratifying thing.
That's really good. I love that.
It's been so great to talk to you. Thank you so, so much.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.